You know what? I was legit excited. Finally, in 2023, we could put all the complaints about TVs only having 2 full bandwidth HDMI 2.1 ports behind us. What a relief, right? Yeah, well, that's not happening. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Caleb Dennison, and yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of pissed, but maybe not pissed for the reasons you think. Before I go on, just let me get this news bomb out of the way in case you haven't already heard. And please, please don't shoot the messenger here. Even though I was very much one of the messengers who got your hopes up in the first place, just please stick with me here, okay? Anyway, here's your news bomb. The promise of high-end 2023 TVs from brands like Sony, TCL, Hisense, and pretty much every other TV brand not named Samsung and LG, the promise of those having 4 full bandwidth HDMI 2.1 ports, that promise has been broken, or it was never real to begin with. And I have zero issue pointing the finger of blame directly at a company called MediaTek, because it is their product, it was their promise, or at least a promise they allowed to propagate, and they did not do what they needed to do to make corrections or manage expectations. By the way, please like, comment, subscribe. I mean, we know you're gonna comment. We all know why we're here, right? So let's move on. So what happened here? Well, let's start by giving credit where it's due. Vincent Teo, who runs the HDTV Test channel on YouTube and whose knowledge and thoroughness I can only aspire to one day attain, that Vincent, like there's any other Vincent. Anyway, he 100% broke this story. And I said it on Twitter, I'll say it again here. Nice get, dude. Anyway, before I saw Vincent's video or his tweet about said video, another YouTube creator, that would be FOMO, hit me up on Twitter with several questions that put me on high alert. So I started looking into things, and from there, I ended up going down more or less the same path that Vincent did. So let's go back to November 11th, 2022. I get a message from Digital Trends editor-in-chief. He's at the MediaTek conference with our mobile editor, and he says, hey, they're talking about this new TV chip. You interested in this? And I said, yeah, like, does a bear scat in the woods? Totally interested. Get me the deets, please. I look at the press release, I ask some questions, I get some answers, I check and verify on the product webpage, and there it is, the MediaTek Pentonic 1000 System on Chip, or SoC. This is the board that a bunch of TV manufacturers will be using in their 2023 TVs. We'll see these TVs coming out in spring of this year. And among many other features, the one I and many other tech journalists honed in on, 4 full bandwidth HDMI 2.1 ports. So with full bandwidth HDMI 2.1 ports, you get all the stuff, right? 4K up to 144 Hertz, VRR, auto low latency mode, quick media switching, the whole enchilada with extra gooey cheese from all of the HDMI ports in the TV. Not just 2, as we've had for several years now. Just 1 if you use the eARC port to connect a soundbar, right? Because that uses one of them up. Anyway, TV enthusiasts went bananas, and I made a video, should you wait to buy a new TV, based on this information. Now, cut to CES. I start getting interesting information from TCL about how some of their TVs will let you do 144 Hertz, but they will cut vertical resolution in half to do it. Why is that? Then I talk to Hisense and start probing them, but they aren't talking about any 4 HDMI 2.1 ports. I mean, they said they would be HDMI 2.1 compliant, which should have been a huge flashing red alert, but I was slamming busy trying to make content in what is effectively a human tech zoo, so I gathered all the info I could and hopped on camera. Busy, busy bee. And of course, Sony wasn't there, so I didn't get to see their TVs, and they usually have them placed in a way that I could crane my neck around and look at the back of their production samples, but that didn't happen. And in hindsight, what I should have done was look at the back of Panasonic's TVs. That would have been a good move, but I didn't. Vincent Teo, however, did look at the back of some TVs apparently, and when he did, he noticed that many of the TVs were showing 4K 60 Hertz labels on 2 of the HDMI inputs, which very much flies in the face of what we had come to expect. So Vincent starts pressuring MediaTek for answers and eventually gets them. Meanwhile, I'm over here going, wait a second, was I crazy? They did say 4 HDMI 2.1 ports, right? Not only that, but they hyped up full 4K at up to 144 Hertz. I'm sure of that. I checked my notes. Yep, there it all is. I was told that. But just to be sure, I go and check MediaTek's website. HDMI 2.1, yeah, there it is, but nothing about 4 of them. But I swear, it said 4 at one point. I know I'm not misremembering this. Then it was like, hold on a second, let me check the Wayback Machine. Totally underutilized web tool, people. And sure enough, on November 11 at 10:04 a.m., there it is, HDMI 2.1 times 4. Cut to November 19th at 3:58 p.m., it's gone. Now, I think I know exactly what happened, and it ain't cute, folks. It's part of a problem I and many others have been complaining about ever since HDMI 2.1 was issued as a specification. That specification is a toothless son of a b****, is what it is, because all you have to do to print HDMI 2.1 on your TV or on the box is support one of the recommended HDMI 2.1 features. That's it. It's HDMI 2.1 now, even though it doesn't do 4K 120 or 4K 144, even if it doesn't do high bandwidth 40 or 48 gigabits per second, even if it doesn't do auto low latency mode, even if it doesn't do 4K 444 chroma, even if it doesn't do most of the things that many of us want it to do. So, new slogan, HDMI 2.1. It does not mean what you think it means. So frustrating. Anyway, maybe, technically, MediaTek was in the clear with putting HDMI 2.1 times 4 on its website. Technically, that was true based on the very loose rules about what constitutes HDMI 2.1. But when everyone started getting excited and reporting on how there were 4 full bandwidth HDMI 2.1 ports, rather than reach out to journalists with clarifications with the truth, it appears they just fixed the glitch. Like in Office Space, right? They don't fire Milton, they just fixed the glitch in payroll that allowed him to get paid even though he had been let go ages ago, and figured the problem will just work itself out, right? Wrong. You know how that story ends, right? Milton sets the whole damn building on fire. Well, something tells me that's gonna happen here. The TV enthusiast crowd, which let's be frank, I'm talking to you right now, so you watching this video, how upset are you right now? Pretty upset? I mean, that's what I'm guessing. Because in the comments, I see over and over how if such and such TV brand doesn't offer 4 HDMI 2.1 ports, then they are dead to me. I also see some pretty reasoned comments like, I pay all this money for a Sony or Hisense or TCL or Vizio TV, and I don't get what Samsung and LG have had for years now? What's up with that? How do you call yourself a premium TV manufacturer and not have these things? Fair questions. I mean, yeah, I get why you might be upset. I'm not thrilled either. Know why? Because I have to talk about this all year now. I really would prefer for this not to be a distraction, and yet here we are. But let's put down the torches for a moment. Let's take a deep breath, step back. Let's assess the situation from a reasoned perspective. Yeah, MediaTek may have screwed up the communications on this thing, at least that's what it looks like, but what are we looking at here really? What's the big picture? Well, first off, the Pentonic 1000 SoC does some pretty awesome things. It's definitely an advanced piece of tech. There are several highly usable features to love, like multi-screen viewing, every flavor of HDR supported, and support for next-gen codecs like H.266 that can mean even more pristine video quality at high resolutions, but with less data consumption. That one thing is super meaningful, and it's going to benefit a lot of people. But how many folks does having 4 full bandwidth HDMI 2.1 ports benefit? How many folks need that many? Seems like that number is probably less than the number of folks who would benefit from higher quality video when streaming, but with less of a hit on their data cap. You know, maybe it's not such a big deal that we don't, you know what? Nope, can't do it. Sorry. Look, Samsung and LG have offered 4 full bandwidth ports in several of their TV models for a few years now. It can be done. Kind of seems like MediaTek should be doing it too. I mean, I get that the Pentonic 1000 does a lot of cool stuff, but I don't know, seems like this is a big missed opportunity here. And how do you think the TV brands feel about this? I mean, I'm gonna ask them, we'll see what they say, if they say anything at all, but I can imagine it doesn't put them in a great spot. I mean, if they could use a different SoC, I think they probably would. Doesn't seem like there are a ton of better options for them out there. Should they buy SoCs from Samsung and LG? I am not convinced that Samsung or LG would sell them, first of all, and even if they did, I'm sure there's some conflicts involved in such a move that I'm not even thinking about right now. And if MediaTek didn't have this business all sewn up, if there were plentiful competitors, other options for TV brands like Sony, TCL, Hisense, and Vizio to use, it seems like those brands would use those options. Somehow, I doubt they are all slave to MediaTek due to decade-long contracts. I just think MediaTek kind of owns this part of the supply line. I mean, there are unanswered questions here. I'm just pontificating now. You get it, right? This is a rant. I'll be a good journalist. I'll ask the questions and report on the answers or non-answers that I get. But I can't help but feel like this situation was avoidable. I take personal offense that wrong information was allowed to propagate. And in the end, I just find this all really disappointing. But if there's a silver lining, perhaps it's that in spite of all this, 2023 TVs from brands not named Samsung and LG will still be highly competitive for other reasons. Or perhaps the silver lining is that if there's enough of an uproar, we'll see some meaningful change in 2024. Honestly, most of the public isn't going to be too bothered by this. And if that's you, if you're someone who doesn't see the need for 4 full bandwidth HDMI 2.1 ports, or maybe you don't even know what I'm talking about, 2 is going to be good enough for your game console and your soundbar, or maybe you're rocking an AV receiver with all the high bandwidth ports that you could ever need. Well, I'm glad you're not affected. I think the TV manufacturers are actually kind of counting on the idea that most folks won't notice this because they don't have a need for the thing that they aren't getting. The rest of us, well, I guess we'll just have to keep on waiting. Thanks as always for watching, everyone. If you like this kind of content, please let me know by clicking the like button, subscribe for more. I'll see you on the next one, and until then, here's 2 other videos I think you might like.